Dr. Alfiee, and I am here wearing two hats. Let me tell you the big hat first. The big hat is as the Chief Mental Wealth Officer for Charlamagne the Guy's Mental Wealth Alliance. Yes, yes, yes. And the little hat today is I run an organization called the Acoma Project. Both of us have booths back there, so hopefully you got to stop by. The Acoma Project is focused on youth of color mental health with a primary focus on our Black young people. So with that said, it's my pleasure to be here and to host the Black Women in Mental Health panel because sisters got needs too, right? Especially nowadays, and so we want to get into this. Let me take my seat. I'm going to introduce my illustrious panel of colleagues. Now I wasted a minute. All right, let me go. So our first panelist is Dr. Charmain Jackman, psychologist and founder of InnoPsych. Come on out, Dr. Jackman. All righty, all righty. Then we have, many of you know her from her appearance Friday night on The God's Honest Truth. A sister, she's going to tell you about her book, The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. Dr. Rheeda Walker, come on out, sis. Next, we have my colleague. We worked together on an Audible project, which is where I first was introduced to her, and a mental health advocate, an attorney, and a speaker. Attorney, we're going to put some respect on her name, attorney Corey Minor-Smith. Come on out, sis. And then we have my sister. We have this long story about how she and I first met, but we ain't gonna get into all that today. But you all know her as the executive director of the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation, and everybody in here knows what that is. And so we want to bring out my sister, the executive director of the B.L. Henson Foundation, Miss Tracie Jenkins. Come on out, queen. All right, so make sure you get plenty of pictures of all this beautiful melanin, these queens up here. We're gonna recognize these sisters and get them some flowers. All right, so we're gonna start very briefly with one simple question for everybody. That question is, tell us why in this moment, Black women's mental health is important to you. So we're gonna start and just go down the line. Go right ahead, Dr. Jackman.
We have carried our communities, our families, our organizations for many years, and there's a toll that that takes on us. And I think it's time that we're recognizing that and that we're doing something about it.
Awesome, thank you. Go right ahead, Dr. Walker.
Well, Black women are powerful, immensely powerful. And at times, I think we don't necessarily tap into that power, but you all know that there's a lot going on in our society right now. And the timing is such that we tap into that power and we share it with the world as we continue to heal ourselves and heal our communities.
Hello. As Black women, we tend to want to feel that the world is on our shoulders and we have to wear this superwoman cape. And I believe today we're able to show you how you can take that cape off unashamedly and to walk in your power each and every day, regardless of what other people think or feel about you.
I would just say that we're tired. And so now we're gonna sort of have a better understanding of how to break that word down into actionable steps so that we ain't tired no more. That's all I'll say about it.
All right. All right, don't start preaching up in here, sis. Come on now. All right, but I love it. You speaking facts. All right, so I'm gonna go to you first, attorney. I was gonna say doctor, attorney Smith. What I would love to hear is aligned with part of why Charlamagne started his foundation. And these are these pillars of train, treat, and teach in our community, in the Black community. And so for you, I feel like there are aspects of your work that align with all three of those pillars. But what I would really love to hear is why did you decide to become a mental health advocate as an attorney?
Absolutely. It was actually way before I became an attorney. 13, 14 years old, I was thrust into this world of the unknown and trying to understand and deal with behaviors that I saw within my household. And that was with my mother, who I now know lives with severe mental illness, dealing with hallucinations, dealing with delusions, and just trying to understand the paranoia that she talked about, things that I didn't see that she saw. And so when I went to college, 1994, there was a TV movie called Out of Darkness, starring Diana Ross. And that was my first time being able to identify with the behaviors that I saw within my own household and understanding and knowing this diagnosis that I heard when we had to take my mother to the emergency room and understand and try to help her with what she was dealing with at the time. So it started long before me becoming a lawyer, but as a lawyer, I'm now able to research the law and to help other families to understand diagnosis and what they can do to help their loved one instead of giving up on that person, instead of thinking it's just drugs or alcohol, knowing that mental illness, i.e. severe mental illness, is real.
What I want to say about that is yes, please give her a round of applause for that, because that's powerful. What I will say about that is your transparency and sharing it is what's so needed. Because in our communities, there's certain things that we can say and people don't blink, right? People talk about their sugar and diabetes, you know what I mean? People talk about, ooh, child, I need to lose weight all the time, right? All of these things are things that we're very open about, but mental illness and mental health are always talked about in hushed tones. And so for you to sit here and be open about your own experience, I want to say how important and significant it is to me that we mirror that for people and that we reflect back to you how we see you and we understand how important it is when you share that kind of story and the power behind that. So I want to thank you for that. I really appreciate it. So Dr. Walker, I'm going to turn to you. And let me tell y'all, I like formal. So when people have titles, I use them and tell you why. Because in the spaces that we inhabit, there are too often times when people disregard our titles, disregard the work that we've done. So I tend to be more formal. Rheeda is my sister. We go way back. But I'm going to say Dr. Walker and maybe Dr. Rheeda today because she earned that, right? And so I'm going to give it to her. So Dr. Walker, in your book, The Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health, which everybody knows and everybody should have a copy of. If you don't, you got to get one. You introduced this idea of psychological, my brother's going to love this, he's a Q, fortitude. Can you briefly talk about what that is and educate us a little bit about that concept?
I will. I'm glad to do it. You all ever ask anybody, how you doing? And what do they say? Fine, blessed and highly favored, but that doesn't tell you anything. Well, it tells you that they know how to rinse and repeat, just say fine. But what we really need to do is to start to get to a place where we can be self-assessors and also to be able to understand what other folks are going through. So psychological fortitude is a 0 to 10 rating of your ability to be able to just go to work, go to school, take care of your family, take care of your physical health. We do have a lot of chronic illness, and also to be able to live your life purpose. Everyone in this room has a profound life purpose, but there are threats to that, right? There's stuff that just happens. I think about Ahmaud Arbery. I'm a Georgia native. I think about Ahmaud Arbery, who was out for a jog for his health and didn't make it home. And so we have to be aware of all these things while still taking care of our responsibilities. So if I say to my sis, so on a 0 to 10 rating, what's your ability to just be able to handle your business today? And she says 7 or 8. I'm like, okay, she's doing all right. If she says 5 or 6, then that tells me something might be going on. I don't even need to know what it is. I just need to know that, well, maybe I could provide some support. I can say like, hey, you want to get some lunch? You want to do a Zoom? Do you need me to come in and get your children for a couple of hours? And that's how we start to take care of our emotional health before we get to that place of severe crisis, because crises start with the little things, and our difficulties in managing some of the smaller things. So thank you for the question.
Oh, absolutely. I love that idea, and I keep coming back to this idea of these pillars with the Mental Wealth Alliance. And what you just did was teach us, right, about how we can support and uplift each other in tiny ways that I don't know that we always think about. So I am definitely grateful for that. So let me turn to you, Tracie Jenkins, Executive Director. What I would love to hear about is, let me just flag this one statistic that you shared with us, which is when you first started your campaign of providing free mental health support for Black folks 2 years ago. I have to say that was one of the things that inspired a Coma Project for the one that we have now with our young people. So I'm gonna thank you for that and give you them flowers. We appreciate that. women made up 93% of the participants. Can you speak to that a little bit? What are your thoughts about why so many more women took advantage of that?
Sure, sure. Well, as women, of course, we are the first to step forward to try most things, right? And then we take it home. We talk to our husbands or our brothers about it, and hopefully they'll be inspired to do the same. It was very interesting that 93% were women who took advantage of the free therapy, but the biggest piece to me was the why. We did a survey and found out that they reached out because of loss of community. And that's when COVID first hit us, and hit us really hard. And we know we're a tribal community as Black people. So when you start removing those important folks like grandma, you know, who's the matriarch or who is raising the baby because of whatever the circumstances were in the home, that began to really damage us, and not have our sister friends to go sit around and talk to about. That was hard. So I found that very interesting. But the good news is that Black men, we had a huge increase in those who decided to come up over the last 2 years and ask for help. We started with 7%. Now we have 49% men who are now reaching out for therapy. And that's over 5,000 free sessions that we've given. So it's a lot of help going on out there. But thanks to the sisters, because you know us, we drag you on in that room.
Love it.
Thanks
Thank you so much for that, and congratulations on the success, because when you have success in that way, it's helping all of us, right? So that success is for all of us. That's a win for us all. So I'm very grateful for that, and excited that people are recognizing. I keep going back to Char being one of the earliest people out there that I can remember as a Black male saying, this is important, right? We got to talk about this stuff. And it's so often when I'm having out and traveling and talking to people, a lot of folks will reference, well, you know, I heard Charlamagne say on the Breakfast Club, or, you know, you got to invest in your mental wealth, right? Like repeating what he's saying. And I just think the more we can have brothers like that stand up, like the male panel that we had earlier, it just gives young men out there an idea that it can be different, right? They don't have to struggle and suffer in silence. So I appreciate that. So I'm going to turn to you, Dr. Jackman, and I'm going to go a teeny bit off script, but you got it. I know you got it. Can you tell us a little bit about InnoPsych and what led you to found that? Because I would love to hear that and share it with the people.
Thank you for that. So I founded InnoPsych, which is a National Therapist of Color directory. My goal was to increase access to mental health services, make it easier and faster for people to find therapists of color. And it was based on my own struggle about 3 years ago. I was looking to work with a Black woman, and I couldn't find one. And literally 6 months in, I found a white therapist who we worked with. My husband and I went to couples therapy. And then she was able to connect us with a Black woman therapist. And I am a therapist, okay? So it took me 6 months. And when we think about when we come to therapy, when we fight through all the barriers, all the stigma, we're not coming in just for, you know, just see how things are going. There's some stuff that's hit the fan, right? And so for me, 6 months is way too long. You know, untreated mental health concerns lead to more serious concerns, and at its worst, suicide, right? So I really wanted to have an impact on that. So it's a beautiful directory. We have a booth in the back that features therapists of color across the country. And again, our goal is to make that process easier and faster. And like many of you here, we also do the teaching because we know the conversations aren't easy. And so we're doing lots of programming that helps change and shift how we think and talk about therapy.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm going to build on that. Yes, that's a round of applause for that. That's it. That's lifting as you climb, right? There was a need that you had, and you knew that other people had that need, and so you jumped in there and did something. So I appreciate that deeply. So Dr. Walker, I'm going to come back to you. Listening to Dr. Jackman talk about the process, there was a part of me that thought, but she knew when it was time to get some support, right? And because she's in the field, she had an idea of like where to go and where to start. My question for you is, how do the rest of us know when it's time to go get some help? Like, that's always a question, because I find when working with families, I'm licensed in 2 states in the District of Columbia, and I so often find that when people come to meet black families, we're gonna talk about black folk, we family, so we're gonna talk about us. They're at their wits' end, right? It's all this other stuff that's happened. Often it's under threat of, okay, we finna put Johnny out of school if you don't go get him some help. And, I don't blame parents, because I'm happy that they show up, but there's always this part of me that thinks, if you would have just come in a little bit earlier, like when you first saw the stuffs. So educate us a little bit, and I hate to say educate, because black people aren't ignorant. Enlighten us a little bit about how you know.
It's a common question that I get, that folks say, well, this is what I'm doing this and I'm doing that, but how do I know that I need help? And one of my first responses is always, if you're wondering if you need help, you probably need help. That's the first response. But for other folks who may not be wondering yet, it's about paying attention to determine whether or not what you're doing is working. So when I said earlier, we're powerful people, what I mean is that, we're creative, we're innovative, we make a way out of no way. Like, we do that all the time. I think about how, certain things we cook that we eat that we probably have no right eating, but we make a way. But after a while, we start to get really overwhelmed and burdened down by that. And it happens slowly over time, but when we start to notice things like a lot of problems sleeping, a lot of problems with our memory and concentration, and I have memory concentration problems too, so don't worry, it's not just you, I promise. But when all these things start to accumulate and what you're doing isn't working, then it's time to talk to a professional, because the interesting thing is that you don't have to diagnose. When you talk to a professional, we are trained to be able to help you determine if you need to be talking to us or not. So if you're wondering, see the licensed professional, tell them what you see that's going on that maybe has changed or is different in your life, or that you've been struggling with for 5, 15 years. There's no need to be embarrassed, and let them tell you how they can be helpful. And if they say, I can't help you with this, and you think, well, no, something didn't feel right about that, find another professional. Be very diligent about finding the person that you need to help you get to where you want to be. Because we all know what works for us and what doesn't. We just got to take the time and be patient, and the answers will come.
Thank you for that. So I feel like I'm hearing this step-by-step process. I'm going to quote Tracie, like the divine intervention, right? So what we're feeling and experiencing in this moment is this enlightenment around what's the process. So, if you have a question, it might be time to go follow up on that question. When you need to find someone to help you answer that question, you have a resource that will help you get those answers, find the right person to answer. And so I'm gonna turn to you, Corey. And what I'm gonna ask is, related to what I'm hearing, I feel like there's this undercurrent. And I do think that's a part of the work that we try to do with the Mental Wealth Alliance, and that's this idea of fear and stigma. That part of what keeps people out, right? I'm just gonna speak to parents, because that's my niche, is working with parents and teens, is that often teenagers, young people know something's not right. And many of them, not all, wanna get help. But one of the hurdles is us. And I say this because I'm a parent. My baby's out here somewhere. Where's my daughter? There she is. That's my baby Morgan, right? Yeah, she's like, please, Mom, no, stop. But the barrier can be us. And I think sometimes that's tied to stigma. So can you talk a little bit about this issue of stigma and how you support people and your thoughts on how do we help eradicate that?
Thank you. That's a very good question. And in regards to stigma, we have to first acknowledge that there is stigma, embarrassment, shame, whatever is causing you to tell your children to be quiet and don't air our dirty laundry, and other ways that you effectively push things under the rug. I share what I call a AAA strategy. And those 3 things are to acknowledge, to accept, and to advocate. So when you acknowledge, you are acknowledging that there is an issue. You're not just pushing it off as drugs or alcohol or that person is crazy, but acknowledging that there is a real issue and learning more about it, helping yourself to be educated. So even you in the older generations, and however your family dealt with it before you you know that there are new ways. And many times we learn about new ways because of our children, the millennials, the ones that are coming after us. Are you open to embracing that? Are you open to learning more about what they're sharing with you? Because many times they are more connected to what is going on in their world than we are, and then we don't want to hear it from them. So acknowledge more than what you know right now. We only know what we know, right? But you have to be open to what you don't know. Accept. One thing I had to do was accept that my mother's mental illness, the behaviors were never going to go away. So the medication, the services, wraparound services, all that we engage in doesn't necessarily mean that her behaviors are going to totally go away. And so when you accept and understand that this is your loved one, that person may never be who you expect them to be. You have to expect who they are, accept who they are, and understand and work within that realm of who they are. And thirdly, once you're able to acknowledge, once you're able to accept, you're able to advocate. I appreciate this event so much and all the people that are here, the organizations that are here, because I didn't know about them when I was 13 and 14 years old trying to understand what was going on with my mother. To know about the conversation that Charlamagne had with, I forgot his name, I'm so sorry. But at any rate, he had expressed how he wasn't interested in talking to people he don't know when Charlamagne had asked him about or suggested that he go to therapy. We need to even have conversations like that. Why don't we want to go to therapy? And being open to it. And I feel like this event happened when he said, this rapper that I cannot think of his name right now, but he tweeted, he tweeted that we need to make mental health cool for the Black community. Thank you, Meek Mill. Meek Mill. This event is helping to make mental health cool in the Black community. And we are all able to take the information that we're learning today and become advocates in our own community. So AAA strategy, acknowledge, accept, and advocate.
Yes, I love it. I love it. So I'm just mindful of time. I'm gonna come to Tracie in a second, but let me tell you something. When Meek tweeted that, all the Black people already in this space were like, dude, we are here, like, come on, like we're all out here, like we're working so hard. And so I think what he did was sort of give all of us, those of us who do this work, an opportunity to elevate what we do even more, right? But I remember that tweet and I was like, Lord have mercy. So like, I was just like, how do we like help him understand and see? And what that does is it reflects this idea, right? We all know that book, The Invisible Man. And there's so often that I feel like for those of us who do this work, we don't have opportunities like this for the work to be elevated. And so this gives us, so shouts out to Char, this gives us the opportunity to elevate this work, right? And people are doing it. So in this spirit of elevation, one thing I wanna reflect on, Tracie, is this idea that you have shared publicly, right? So everybody knows Tracie and Taraji have a show, Peace of Mind, right? And I know everybody out here has seen it. If you haven't, you need to go watch it. And in that show, you both have been open about your own personal experiences around anxiety and depression. So would you share a little bit about, you've talked about this, and a little bit about one thing that we share, namaste, that you do that helps you with that process?
Well, one thing that we all share is breath. We all breathe. So here we are sitting here in one space. Nobody had to go get a degree to breathe. Nobody had to have, doctor breath going on. We breathe, so it's free. And that is the thing that keeps me grounded every single day, is meditation. I don't know how I would be able to function without it. I didn't understand anxiety or depression enough to pay attention to my body. I didn't know that if my chest was tightening up, that perhaps a thought went into my brain, and then my brain signaled that I'm in danger, and then I'm freaking out. I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack, straight up. I can't tell you how many times I have called the ambulance on myself. And so I had to stop and say, and this is another thing that I try to use for myself, what else could be true? Maybe it's not a heart attack, boo. Because you could pick up that phone and you could call 911. What's happening here? So I'm paying attention to my body more. and giving myself those kinds of tools that I can do on my way to the therapist, because I'm going to the therapist. But these are at-home tools that I use. I breathe. I understand when I need a break, when I need to pause, when I need to put this thing right here down, right? Because this is definitely a generator and trigger for most of us. So meditation has been my all in all, including therapy, of course, but just breathing and knowing your body enough, listening to your body when it tells you that something ain't quite right. Breathe and allow the space to open up for you to ask the question, what else can be true?
Thank you so much for that. So I'm gonna put all of y'all in here on the spot. I'm gonna ask everybody to sit up straight for a second. We're gonna teach y'all something right quick like. And what I'm gonna ask you to do is put your hands on your lap, if you don't mind. I'm inviting you, because I got in trouble one time. I said, please do it. And somebody sent me, true story, a nasty email saying, you told me I had to meditate and I wasn't happy. I was like, okay. So I'm inviting. So what I'm gonna ask you to do, we're gonna do this for 30 seconds, and I got a clock so I can time myself. I'm gonna invite you to close your eyes. Or look down at the ground, cast your gaze down. I'm gonna invite you to take one deep breath in and to blow it out. And to do that one more time, in and blow it out. Now I'm gonna teach you how I meditate. This is gonna take 20 seconds, I promise you. I ask you to think of a positive word. That word is going to be your intention for the rest of the day. This is aligned with when you came into the door, into the building. The iHeart team and MWA and everybody who put this together had this beautiful mirror board asking you to set an intention. If you did that, reflect on it. If you did not, this is your opportunity to do it now. So with the 20 seconds I have left watching this clock, for 20 seconds, with your eyes closed, your hands on your lap, you're sitting up straight, I'm gonna ask you to just pay attention to your breath, as Sister Tracie said, and I'm gonna time you, and you're going to breathe, and I'm gonna ask you to only do this for 10 seconds. So we're gonna start now. You can open your eyes. I'm gonna ask you to take one deep breath in, blow it out, and everybody in here has just practiced meditation. Can you give yourselves a round of applause for that? All right. So that's portable. Just like Sister Tracie said, you can take that anywhere. Nobody has to know that you're doing that, right? Just thinking about what Corey said about we worry and wonder about if people are going to think we're crazy. Nobody has to know that you're doing that. And please, always, when you go to work next week or you get on that Zoom next week and that person get on your nerves and start dancing on it, remember what I just taught you, right? Before you go off and get yourself in trouble, okay? So just do that for me. All right. I'm speaking from experience. All right, so in this last minute, I'm gonna ask each of my esteemed panelists in 30 seconds, we'll start with the check-in, tell me one thing you would encourage everybody out here to do to take care of their mental health. Now, I'm gonna time you, because we ain't got but a minute, so go. You got 30 seconds.
So I really want to just elevate the conversation we had about we take care of our physical health. Many of us go every year to our doctor, right? Get a checkup. I want you to think about what would that look like for me if I went and saw a therapist every year just to do a check-in. That is normalizing this process, right? There is nothing wrong with you going right now to see a therapist, whether there's something huge going on or you just want to try it out, right? So I want your call to action today. Schedule an appointment with a therapist.
All right, thank you. Drop this. Mic drop. Dr. Walker, what you got?
Okay, 1.5 things. One thing is get a copy or download the Unapologetic Guide to Black Mental Health. The other thing is to recognize that life is a series of decision points. So things are happening all the time, and we can each choose, I'm gonna let this take over me, or I'm gonna take a step back, evaluate it, and determine whether or not I got control of this.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Corey?
Thank you very much. And I would also say to download #Driven or purchase your copy from Amazon. It has 5 principles that you can apply to your life to help you to navigate the everlasting issues and concerns that you may face in your life. #Driven, faith, motivation, determination, preparation, and action.
Thank you, sis. All right, I love it. And my sister Tracie, go ahead.
I would say make space for grace.
All right now. Amen. Jeez Louise, what I'm supposed to say after that? My goodness. All right, so I just want to say to all of you, thank you so much for your time and attention. This is so deeply meaningful to me. I tease and call myself a recovering academic. These ladies are still in that space. I couldn't do it anymore, so I give props to them. I had to get out. But it's just so meaningful for me to see all of you here, to know that you're here. We're all celebrating the same thing, which is taking care of our Black folks, mental health, and those of us who are not Black, that you in here supporting those of us who are Black and taking care of our mental health. It has been my pleasure to be here with you, and thank you so much for your time and attention.